really, really fascinating studies are coming out to link how our nutrition can impact our mood and anxiety. So I'm really excited to present this information to you guys. I will have time at the end to answer any questions. Just a little bit tricky to do that on the webinar. So definitely I'll be answering the questions at the end. Sorry, I just don't know how to change the slides. Okay, I'm not sure what I pressed. Sorry, the formatting is a little bit off here. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a registered dietitian. I have over 12 years of experience in the field. I also hold a master's in public health. I'm a certified diabetes educator, and this is where my passion for nutrition really grew. Working in diabetes, as we know, there's no cure for diabetes, and our diet, our lifestyle is a form of medication. So working in this field just really opened my eyes to see how powerful our diet can be in our health outcomes and our overall health. I'm also a clinical dietitian at the MedCan Clinic in Toronto. I also have a private practice here in Richmond Hill. I focus on diabetes, heart disease, family nutrition, weight loss as well. I'm so sorry, this is not easy to read. I'm not sure what happened. I do recipe and menu development, product review and recommendations. I also do corporate wellness, and I host cooking classes and workshops. Okay, so after hearing this presentation, there's a few things I really want all of you guys to take away. So first of all, I want you guys to have a better understanding of what anxiety is and how it is different from depression, the causes of anxiety and who is most at risk, as well as understand or better understand the role of our brain, chemistry, and our mood, what exactly the gut-brain axis is, and the common nutrition deficiencies with those who have anxiety, and which foods can impact our brain chemistry and our mood. So first of all, speaking with anxiety, right? So anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. And this is not always a bad thing. This is a good thing because having a little bit of anxiety can fuel us, right? It can kind of, build resilience. So anxiety is a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. So, the first day of school, going to a job interview, giving a speech, may cause people to be a bit fearful and nervous. And again, this is not a bad thing, and this happens to us, or feelings of anxiety is very, very normal. But what happens is that when we're in this state for a really, for a long time or, very frequent, that's when it becomes an issue. So that's when it could lead to an anxiety disorder. The feeling of fear may be with you all the time. So it can be very intense and debilitating as well. And if it's not treated, the anxiety will keep on getting worse. So usually when we're, in a stressful situation or we're, have something coming up and we're anxious about it, the event happens and then, we're okay. But for people who have anxiety disorder or have trouble with just kind of letting go of that, and they're always in that fearful state, and that's when it can become problematic. So we can use anxiety to improve our performance, right? When you have that anxiety, like that fearfulness, it actually shows that you care. So it's not a bad thing, and it's so normal for all of us to have that anxiety, but it's how long that anxiety lasts and how it can impact what we do, like our actions or how we think. That's when it becomes a problem. So I got this stat from the US. I couldn't find anything in Canada. The stats in Canada are a bit dated. They're from 2013, I believe. So anxiety disorders worldwide, actually, it's not just common in the US, it's worldwide, is a common mental illness, in this case, the US, affecting 40 million adults age 18 and older. So anxiety disorders are highly treatable, but yet only 36.9% of those suffering receive treatment. So a lot of the people who have anxiety are living alone or they're not talking about it. And anxiety disorders are the most common mental health disorders. About 1 in 10 people are affected by them. They can affect children as well as adults, and symptoms of anxiety disorders first appear in early adulthood. So, who is at risk for anxiety? So, research shows that women actually are at the most risk. Same with depression. Women have a higher rate of anxiety compared to men. So 33%, that's your lifetime risk. So just to put that in perspective, for women, the risk for breast cancer is 12%. So for having an anxiety disorder, that's almost 3 times that. So 33% of women will have that risk of developing anxiety. And the reason for this is there's many factors. So the difference between genders, so it can depend on brain chemistry. It can be due to hormones as well as gender inequalities. Again, women who work full-time, many of them do work for less pay for the equal amount of work. Also household, there's more chores at home, dealing with childcare. Women are typically the ones who have to, deal with that. And response to stress and social culture. Women tend to feel responsible for the happiness of others. And this is a really big one. Women have so many roles that they have, and it can be very overwhelming. And if they don't seek help or let people know when they need extra help, this can really be damaging to their mental health. Also, women go through a lot of changes in their life, again, with pregnancy and menopause. These are both times when women have a lot of fluctuation in their hormones, so low estrogen and low progesterone. And these changes can also contribute to anxiety. And it's also been noted that 38% of teenage girls ages 13 to 17 and 26% of boys struggle with an anxiety disorder. And when speaking of anxiety, there's actually a lot of subcategories that fall into that. So when we're talking about anxiety, that encompasses generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety disorder, and PTSD, so post-traumatic stress syndrome as well. So anxiety is a kind of an umbrella term, and all of these are kind of fit in there. So hopefully this gives you a better understanding why women are at risk for anxiety. Okay, so how to recognize anxiety in yourself and others. So there's many symptoms, and they're different for everyone, okay? So these are just some of the common symptoms that are found with people who have anxiety. Overthinking, avoidance, sweating, stomach issues, panic attacks, having or needing reassurance, lack of patience, trouble concentrating, procrastinating, constant worrying. And when you're constantly in that state of worry, you're not going to be able to sleep properly either, right? So trouble breathing, headaches, rapid heartbeat, insomnia, and memory issues. So it's pretty inclusive. I think we all have symptoms of these, right? So again, it's having these symptoms for a prolonged period of time, that's when it becomes an issue. Okay. So the risk factors for generalized anxiety disorders. Okay, so there's not one reason why someone would have an anxiety disorder. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play. So today I'm going to be talking about the lifestyle factors, and I'm also going to be talking about the brain chemistry. So I'm going to be talking about food specifically, how that influences our brain chemistry. But there's also genetic disposition or predisposition, family background, how we were raised, how we were grown up, and our social influence. And obviously with the rise of social media, this has contributed greatly to anxiety. I think it was just recently rolled out that Instagram is now going to be not displaying the number of likes a post receives. And the reason that they're doing this is because they know that how much anxiety this is causing in adolescents. It's like a really, really big deal. If any of you guys have teenagers, maybe you guys will be able to relate, but social media has caused or is causing a lot of anxiety for so many people. So I'm really happy that these social media platforms are actually using that information and changing the way people interact. So, I'm not sure if it's going to like completely help the anxiety issue, but it's definitely going to be so people won't necessarily, compare themselves as much or, make themselves feel bad, which what social media can do for so many of us. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about the brain, and I really hope you guys have a better understanding about how important, how fascinating this organ is, okay? So the brain is one of the largest and most complex organs in the human body. It is made up of more than 1 billion nerves that communicate in trillions of connections, and these are called synapses. The brain is 60% fat, so it's the fattiest organ in the body, and most of the brain growth is complete by the age of 6 years. So the brain works like a big computer. It processes information and then it receives back from the senses and the body, and it sends messages back to the body. So it receives information and then it distributes information essentially. So the brain controls pretty much everything, right? It controls your ability to think, talk, feel, see, hear, how you remember things, your memory, walking, and much more. It even controls your breathing. So the brain is part of the central nervous system. So along with the brain, the spinal cord and the nerves is what is called the central nervous system. Okay. So now specifically, I'm going to be talking about the brain chemicals that impact our mood, right? So the neurons send signals through neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are chemicals which are released in certain times or other parts of the body receive. So these chemicals let part of the brain communicate with each other. And the 3 commonly studied neurotransmitters are dopamine, and you probably have heard of some of these. So dopamine plays a role in pleasure, motivation, learning, and it gives you the happy feeling, okay? That's when your dopamine levels are high. Serotonin, I'm going to be talking a lot about serotonin. It's associated with memory and learning. It also helps stabilize your mood and happiness. It's involved in sleep and appetite regulation as well. So having sufficient serotonin levels is very important. And then we have GABA, which is a neurotransmitter, which is involved in calming your body with nerve activity, and it helps lower anxiety, okay? So I really want to talk a little bit about antidepressants and medications right here. So antidepressants work by tweaking the amount of these certain brain chemicals that I just mentioned. So these medications can help release more of this brain chemical so that we're in a better state. And speaking of medication, there are times when people will need to be on medication, and I just want to say that it's absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with being on medication. I think that's great. The thing is that you need to know that medication is not a cure for anxiety, okay? So it's a tool to kind of help you. And, if you are on medication for anxiety, there are so many other lifestyle factors that you should be taking into account, like your diet, to kind of help you. And with those changes, you can slowly get off your medication as well. So medication is not a long-term solution. You want it to be a short-term solution. But definitely going on medication is absolutely fine. Seeking help, talking to a therapist is also part of the process as well. So you need to do your part in kind of changing your environment, changing your lifestyle, in addition to taking the medication. Okay, oh yes, I also wanted to talk about BDNF, so the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Now, I didn't know much about BDNF until I started doing my research, and it is super fascinating. So BDNF is a protein that strengthens your existing brain cells, okay, and it creates new ones. BDNF is active primarily in the parts of your brain that is responsible for learning, complex thinking, and for your memory. So BDNF stimulates and controls the growth of new neurons and from neural stem cells, so neurogenesis, when your brain is making more neurons and cells. The levels of BDNF are decreased with many neurodegenerative diseases such as Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and Huntington's disease, as well as bipolar. So for someone who is bipolar, one of the medications is lithium. So lithium actually works to increase your BDNF. So BDNF also naturally decreases with age. Okay, so we always want to try to keep our BDNF levels optimally, which I'm going to be talking about in detail in a little bit on how we can kind of keep these levels high with our lifestyle. I just wanted to help you guys understand what BDNF is, right? So it's like a fertilizer for the brain. It upregulates in times of stress, and that's what we want. Okay, so nutrition and anxiety. The link between diet and mental health is growing as the field of nutritional psychiatry and psychology expands. This field is becoming more impactful as epidemics, like research, continues to make headlines. So there's tons of research in this area. It's incredibly fascinating. There are a lot of epidemiological studies, and there's a lot of promising evidence as well that what we can do with our nutrition in managing or easing anxiety. So again, nutrition is not going to be a cure for your anxiety. It's going to be a role in helping managing the anxiety. It's a tool. So the vitamins in the body help the function of enzymes that enable reactions such as the synthesis of serotonin. So the vitamins that we ingest from food kind of helps with our serotonin levels, which plays an essential role in our happiness. So if we supply our bodies with a healthy diet, we are giving our brains the fuel it needs to affect our thinking, right, and our emotions. So you want to think of it like in terms of eating and our brain, you want to think of it like a high-end car, right, that uses they can only function on premium fuel, premium gasoline. So our brains function best when it receives premium nutrition. That's how I would like you guys to think of that. Make that comparison. Okay, so before I go on talking a little bit more, I just want to make the connection between our brain and our gut. And I know in my previous webinars, there's one that I did that I talked a lot about gut health, and I did touch upon this, but I just want to give you guys a high level information here. So the brain and the gut, they communicate with each other. So the brain influences the gut and the gut influences the brain. So remember I talked about the neurotransmitter serotonin? Well, 90% of that is found in our gut. Well, actually, yeah, 95% of it is found in the gut. So how our stomach, our digestive system operates has a huge role in our mood, because the brain, and it's so interesting because the brain and the digestive tract, they actually look similar. Even though they're spaced far apart in our bodies, they are connected to the vagus nerve, and they communicate through our microbiome, which is right here, our microbiota. So I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I just wanted to just explain that the gut and the brain are connected. It's called the gut-brain axis, and a lot of our chemical messengers are found in our gut, like serotonin. So if we want our serotonin levels to be optimal, we need to really work on our digestive system to make sure that we're eating the right stuff. And that's what I'm going to be talking about, okay? So the gut and the brain, they influence neurotransmitters, our stress, anxiety, our mood, and our behavior. So sometimes when you're really stressed out, you have those psychological or physiological symptoms such as sweating or an upset stomach, and that's because everything's connected. So even with IBS, which people who try to get a diagnosis for it, it's really hard to, because there's no one test that you can do. It's very connected with stress levels, with your brain as well. So people who have a lot of anxiety can have a lot of IBS symptoms as well. So working on our gut is super important. Okay, so again, this is just what I talked about. So our gut is linked to our brain, and the gut is termed the second brain. The microorganisms in our gut, I mentioned before, can communicate with the brain in several systems that could play a role in depression and anxiety. And the composition of the gut, which is the microbiota or the microbiome, is directly influenced by the food that you eat. So a little bit about the microbiome. The gut microbiome is made up of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes in our body. So they outnumber the amount of cells that we have. That's how much that's how the microbiome is. The gut microbiome plays a very important role in our health by helping control digestion and benefiting your immune system and many other aspects of health. So a healthy gut microbiome influences so many factors in our body. It influences our metabolism, our weight, how often we get sick, our immune system, in addition to our appetite and our mood. So our microbiome is huge, and I know, in the last few years, there's been a lot of, in the wellness world as well as the research that show how important our microbiome is to our overall wellness and how it's linked to so many other chronic diseases that we're seeing today, with heart disease and diabetes as well, especially with Alzheimer's disease as well, some of those brain diseases. Okay. So again, this slide is just highlighting to you guys. So these little critters in our intestine, this is just a visual of what the microbiome is, okay? And they play a huge role. So again, protection against pathogens, synthesis of our vitamins, so vitamin K and B12, the way our body absorbs it is, the microbiome plays a huge role in that. Our immune system development, promotion of intestinal angiogenesis, so promoting new intestinal cells, promotion of fat storage, and short-chain fatty acid production by fermentation of dietary fiber, and we need this. So the microbiome, it breaks down or it feeds off of fiber. So that's why it's so important to have a high fiber diet in order for it to kind of do the microbiome to actually do its job. And also modulation of the central nervous system. The microbiome is responsible for that, right? So I had talked about how the gut and the brain are connected. So this brain is part of the central nervous system, and the microbiome directly influences that as well. So this slide just shows you how diverse the microbiome is and how important it is in so many other functions in our body. Okay, so how to boost your gut microbiome? This is what everyone wants to know. How do we have a healthy gut flora? Well, the number one thing is that you want to increase the fiber in your diet. So everyone should be aiming to get at least 30 grams of fiber a day. Okay, so fiber is found in fruits and vegetables, our whole grains, our nuts and seeds, and our beans and lentils. That's where you get a majority of your fiber. So again, eating a variety of fruit and veggies, these have a lot of antioxidants, a lot of vitamins that your body needs. So high antioxidant foods, specifically polyphenols, are antioxidants that act as fuel for our microbiome, okay? So examples are nuts, seeds, berries, olive oil, classification of vegetables, the brassicas, which is like the cruciferous family. So in this image over here, you see cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, bok choy, kale. That's part of the cruciferous family. And these vegetables literally have superpowers. So consuming those regularly is going to be really great for your health. In addition to coffee and tea, especially green tea has a lot of polyphenols that's really beneficial to our health. So again, nothing that I'm suggesting that's out of the ordinary. These are all healthy foods that we've been told to eat. Also avoid snacking, and this is just more in terms of letting your body kind of have that time to digest and let your organs kind of do their job. Also fermented foods, such as kefir, which is a type of milk and has 5 times as many microbes as regular yogurt. You also want to avoid antibiotics as much as you can. I understand that sometimes there's absolutely no way we need to be on antibiotics, but you just don't want to take antibiotics because you're not well. As well as non-essential medications. Like if you have a headache and you take, a Tylenol or an Advil, or if you have heartburn and you take Tums, like those are just Band-Aid solutions. You don't want to be dependent on those. You you want to figure out why you're feeling that way and kind of correct the root problem. You don't want to just have quick fixes. All that medication can interfere with our microbiome, especially with antibiotics, because antibiotics kill all the bacteria, right? Not just the bad bacteria, but the good ones as well. And the microbiome is bacteria. So when we go on antibiotics, we kind of our bacteria just completely all goes away. Going outdoors, studies show that being outdoors in nature, it's called forest bathing, or just being outside, even in your garden, it's really helpful for our microbiome, and avoiding artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners, they're exactly what they sound like. They're artificial, they're fake, they're chemicals, they're man-made. So when we ingest this, our body doesn't know what to do with it, right? So, if you're having artificial sweeteners all the time, like if you're someone who uses Splenda or drinks a lot of Diet Coke or Coke Zero, you really want to scale back on that. This is not food that you want to be having all of the time. I'd rather you stick with the real sugar and have smaller amounts of that than depending on artificial sweeteners. Okay, so the nutrients to ease anxiety. So vitamin D is really important, and so many of us are deficient in it. And I know in Canada, it's not part of our regular routine blood work, but I highly encourage all of you to get your vitamin D levels tested, just to know where you're at, because each person, it's very different how they metabolize vitamin D. So even if you are supplementing, sometimes you still could be low and you need to take a much higher dose. It's not uncommon for me to have clients who need to take 4,000 to 5,000 of international units of vitamin D daily. It's good to take 2,000 international units a day, especially in the seasons when we don't have much sun like we're in right now. There's seasonal depressive disorder, when people just feel depressed when the seasons change, and a lot of this is linked to our vitamin D. The research has found a link between vitamin D with helping to increase your serotonin levels, and lower serotonin levels are found with people who have lower vitamin D stores. So some research suggests that having vitamin D deficiency could also be linked with anxiety. And the thing is, with vitamin D, it's so hard to find in food alone. Very, very hard, and it's not enough. We get it from the sun, so it's best to supplement 2,000 international units daily. And the thing is, with vitamin D, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, meaning that it gets absorbed in our fat cells. So we could take an entire week's worth in one day to help with not forgetting, right? So a lot of people forget to take their vitamins, but vitamin D is great in that you can take a whole week's worth in one day, and nothing will happen to you because it's absorbed in our fat cells, and we have plenty of those. So if you don't know what your vitamin D levels are, highly recommend next time you get blood work done to figure what that is, so you know where you're at. So I also want you to think of vitamin D like a light switch. So we have vitamin D receptors throughout our body, a lot of them in our gut, and when our levels are sufficient, it's like a light switch. So everything is turned on and it's working better. Okay. Omega-3s. Okay, this is another nutrient that's really hard to get through food alone, and our body requires it. So healthy fats that are found in wild fish, so wild salmon, tuna, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, chia seeds are a great source of omega-3s. In addition, a little bit of found in flax seeds, walnuts, soybeans are all good sources of omega-3s. They play a huge role in our brain health. Remember, our brain is the fattiest organ, and we want to supply it with healthy fats. The body cannot make these fats, so people must get it from diet. Omega-3, remember when I talked about BDNF? So omega-3 helps normalize those levels in our brain. And research, again, this research is done on mice, but shows that increasing omega-3 is really, really helpful, especially after traumatic brain injuries as well. So focusing on getting omega-3s, if you're someone who's allergic to fish or doesn't like fish, then having a supplement is so important. So omega-3 and vitamin D are two nutrients that I feel that everyone should be supplementing with regardless, because they're so hard to find in food sources alone, and our body really, really relies on these too. Our next slide. Okay, so B vitamins. So B vitamins are a group of 8 different nutrients. They all work together to manage many processes in the body, including our stress levels. So a study that was done in 2017 found that people who had low levels of vitamin B12 were more likely to have depression or anxiety. And B12 is one of those nutrients that's only found in animal products. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, it's best to supplement with the B12. Also, B12, it's metabolized in our gut, right? And we need our stomach acids to be sufficient to kind of absorb that B12. Now, after the age of 50, anyone who's over the age of 50, our stomach acids naturally decrease. And some people may even have lower levels in their 40s. So it's so important that you supplement with a methylated B12. We need B12 to help convert our food into energy. We also need B12 to help with our cognition or memory as well. So again, anyone over the age of 50 or who takes a lot of stomach antacids, your stomach acids are lower, you want to be supplementing with the B12. And magnesium, for those of you who are on my mailing list, I had sent out an email explaining what magnesium is. It is such an important mineral that so many of us do not have enough of, and our whole body pretty much primarily needs it. So magnesium, I want you to think of it as nature's chill pill. So it relaxes everything in our body. It also relaxes our brain, which helps with promotion of sleep. So if you're someone who is having a hard time sleeping, you really want to try to work on that. And you can start off in a natural form by taking a magnesium supplement. And there's a lot of research that has been done, and studies show that magnesium can be helpful in managing anxiety. And I think in the next, few years or so, we're going to see a lot more area on magnesium and anxiety. So foods that are high in magnesium, I have a chart over here as well, are leafy greens, lentils, beans, whole grains, avocado, nuts, and dark chocolate. So all these foods that are high in magnesium are also really high in fiber as well. And again, if you do want to supplement, you can supplement between 300 to 500 milligrams a day. Now, I must say that because magnesium relaxes everything in your body, the only side effect is that it could have a laxative effect. So it relaxes our bowels as well. And if that's an issue for you, and if you are going to supplement, then you want to supplement with magnesium with lysate, because that protein that's bound to the magnesium will prevent that from happening. Okay, so we should all work on getting more magnesium in our diet. Okay, so a few more that I wanted to highlight. L-theanine. So this is an amino acid that's primarily found in green and black tea, and evidence suggests that it's a mild sedative and an anti-anxiety agent. So a study was done and found that people who drank 200 milligrams of L-theanine had lower stress response and cortisol levels. So cortisol is a hormone, it's our stress hormone. So had lower stress response and cortisol levels after taking on a challenging task than those who received a placebo. So L-theanine, green tea is really, really great. Obviously, they have a lot of antioxidants, but this amino acid has been really helpful or really great in helping with calming you down. Zinc, this is another really important mineral, and people who have eat a very processed diet or who are strict vegetarians likely are not getting enough zinc, okay? So major sources of zinc are found in meats, poultry, cashews, liver, egg yolks, and oysters. So egg yolks, so whenever you're having eggs or making an omelet, make sure you add the yolks in if you're able to tolerate it, because there's so many nutrients in them. So, skip the egg white omelets and get the whole egg in there and enjoy that. Studies have found that the more depressed someone is, the lower their zinc level. So low zinc also seems to affect inflammation and immunity as well. So maybe if you've had a cold and your pharmacist or doctor has told you to take zinc lozenges, so zinc is, not only for anxiety, but also helps with inflammation and our our immunity as well. And antioxidants, okay? So we hear antioxidants, we hear all about them all the time. They're so important, especially to help protect our brain against oxidative stress. So when we have a lot of stress in our body and our cells, like oxidative stress, it can lead to inflammation, which can impair our neurotransmitters. And that's not what we want. We want our neurotransmitters to always be optimal, right? So diets rich in beta-carotene, which is an antioxidant, like carrots, sweet potatoes, squash, spinach, and kale. In addition, another strong antioxidant is vitamin C, which is found in citrus fruits, red peppers, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, strawberries, and then the other antioxidant, vitamin E, which is found in almonds, avocados, spinach, seeds, rice, sweet potatoes. So these are all essential for supporting our brain function. Okay, so I hope this gives you a better understanding of what foods or what vitamins really help with keeping our brain functioning well. So our neurotransmitters, our serotonin, or dopamine, or GABA are all in good levels. Okay. Sorry, I guess when these slides were uploaded, there was a bit of a formatting issue. So foods to feed your neurotransmitters. So first of all, I'm going to talk about serotonin. So we can't ingest serotonin, like we don't find that in foods. In order for our body to convert to serotonin, we need to consume foods that's high in tryptophan. So tryptophan is an amino acid, so it's found in a lot of protein foods, and it's important for the production of serotonin, okay? It is also key to brain function and has a role in healthy sleep, so tryptophan. So people cannot make tryptophan in their body, so they must get it through their diet. So fortunately, tryptophan is found in a lot of foods. Okay, and remember, serotonin, 90% of the body's serotonin is found in the gut. So what we eat is so impactful with our serotonin levels. So tryptophan is generally found, like I said, in protein-rich foods, such as meat, eggs, poultry, fish, seeds, spinach, milk, soy, and nuts. So all these foods will increase our tryptophan. The other neurotransmitter that I had mentioned earlier was dopamine. So again, the amino acid, it's a different amino acid, tyrosine, plays a critical role in the production of dopamine. So there are enzymes within your body are capable of turning tyrosine into dopamine. So having adequate tyrosine levels in your diet is important to make sure your dopamine is in a good level. So tyrosine is found, again, in a lot of protein foods since it's an amino acid. So turkey is a really big one, and beef, eggs, dairy, soy, and legumes. Additionally, we can raise our dopamine levels by exercising, getting enough sleep. We want to definitely get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Sunlight has a huge impact on our dopamine levels. So, in the morning, even if it's cloudy out, just having natural light, opening up your curtains, making sure you're getting that light in is so important. Additionally, meditation has been shown to increase our dopamine levels in addition to prayer as well. Having adequate levels, making sure your iron is fine, your B vitamins, your folate, B6 is important for dopamine production, okay? So those are some factors to help raise our dopamine levels. Okay, so how to feed our neurotransmitters GABA, which is the gamma aminobutyric acid, okay? So certain bacteria in our the foods that we eat produce GABA, which means fermented foods especially, or probiotics such as yogurt, kefir, tempeh can help you get more GABA from the food that you eat. So if you are taking a probiotic, these are 2 strains, Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium, produce GABA and may increase the neurotransmitter in your enteric nervous system. So again, it will just increase that in your gut, which then affects your brain. Okay, so it's the probiotics that we can naturally get through either a supplement or a diet. Additionally, these are a list of some foods that can help with GABA production in our body. So I talked about the cruciferous vegetables and how powerful they are. Additionally, there's soybeans, azuki beans, mushrooms, spinach, tomato, buckwheat, peas, chestnuts, sweet potato, sprouted grains, brown rice, and white tea. And interestingly, not only are these foods so rich in nutrients, but they're also really high in fiber, right? And we know fiber is so important to feed our gut bacteria. And if our gut bacteria is fed well, they're nourished, they're flourishing, and that's all going to affect the chemical messengers like neurotransmitters as well. Okay. So how to boost BDNF? Okay, remember I talked about this protein in our body, sorry, in our brain. So it's been shown that intermittent fasting, so anytime your body's in a state of stress, so intermittent fasting or when you're exercising, your brain naturally produces BDNF. Sunlight, there's a huge impact on our BDNF levels, as well as making sure you're getting enough sleep. I know in my last webinar, I talked a lot about sleep and how that helps regulate hormones, right? So sleep is, common as well, like especially for overall health. Sleep is so important. And even exercise, like a lot of people think of exercise as, just like as a weight loss tool, when really it is so much more powerful than that. Exercise plays a huge role in so much in our daily life, not just weight loss. Actually, when it comes to weight loss, you really want to focus on your diet. Exercise helps with your mood, it helps with your strength, it helps with just feeling better. Exercise is really important, and everyone, should be aiming to get at least 3 to 4 times a week, getting exercise in at least 30 minutes, because this can have a huge impact, even with your brain health. As the research suggests, like to boost our BDNF factor, exercise is important. Polyphenols, again, these are antioxidants, which are found in coffee, green tea, dark chocolate, blueberries, and colorful vegetables. All those pigmented fruit and veggies have a lot of antioxidants in them, which help raise our BDNF levels. So some factors that can, decrease our BDNF is stress. So people who work, in an office, 9 to 5, sedentary lifestyle, that's not really doing much with your BDNF. And interestingly, sugar directly curbs BDNF levels as well. So there's been a huge correlation there showing that if you want to raise your BDNF levels, you want to really cut back on your sugar. And also social isolation. So people who don't, live in a community setting or don't have a lot of friends or social circle, it has been shown that BDNF levels are lower in those types of people. So it's really important. As humans, we are social beings, and we need to really make it a point to be part of a community or part of something. So that really helps with our mental health as well. Okay, so foods contributing to anxiety. So your food, hopefully after hearing what I've had to say, your food choices is how your body provides the brain with what it needs to make neurotransmitters, right? So the modern diet that many of us follow sets you up for chronic inflammation, and chronic inflammation can lead to anxiety. So a lot of the refined flours, the white flours that we have in our diet, too much caffeine. So caffeine is a pretty tricky one because it's metabolized differently for each person. So some people are able to tolerate a lot of caffeine and some people aren't. And that could really make their anxiety worse. So if you're someone who is kind of going through an anxiety, going through a lot of anxiety right now, you probably want to decrease your caffeine intake. So Health Canada recommends about 400 milligrams of caffeine a day. And not all of us know how much caffeine we're getting, but just as, as a guide, like a Starbucks Grande, which is 16 ounces of coffee, that provides 330 milligrams of caffeine, just to give you a reference point. If you're someone who, really wants a little bit of caffeine but want to cut back, I would highly suggest you try green tea or matcha. Matcha is fantastic. It gives you caffeine, but it's filled with L-theanine, which helps calm you as well. Sugars, that's one thing that if you just want to improve your health, you really want to decrease your sugar intake. I'm not saying you need to eliminate it completely, but you really want to be mindful of where you're getting your sugars from. Processed foods, a lot of convenience foods are filled with tons of sugar. Unhealthy fats, so our saturated fats and our trans fats, those are the fats we want to stay away from. The trans fats is found again in a lot of processed foods, like French fries, like pastries, fried food. Saturated fat, again, in a lot of, it comes from animals, so, high fat dairy, red meat, you want to decrease how much you're having that. And preservatives and pesticides as well. This can contribute to anxiety, as well as alcohol. So these are all foods that can increase intestinal permeability, which can disrupt our microbiome. Remember, our goal is to have a healthy microbiome, because if we have a healthy microbiome, that means our digestion is running smoothly, which means communicating with our brain, so our neurotransmitters are in a good level. And having too much of these foods can overexcite the brain and create hyperarousal, which then can lead to anxiety. Okay? All right, so just a visual of some foods that you want to enjoy more of. Again, this is just talking about the fat intake in our diet. So switching or choosing more polyunsaturated fats, which are found in like nuts and seeds, and monounsaturated fats, like nuts, avocado, our omega-3s, the healthy fats that we want to try to have more of. And the foods that, like sometimes I tell my kids, the foods that are high in sugar, those are sometimes foods. So, you don't want to completely eliminate it if that's not going to be realistic for you. I don't think that is realistic, never to have like a hamburger or cake. But again, just you want to limit how much you're having it. These are sometimes foods, so it's not something that you're having daily or even weekly. It's just like once or twice a month, right? It's just going to be much better for your overall health. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit more about refined sugars and flours. So added sugars can cause your blood sugars to spike, okay, and then they crash with it. So it's really important that our blood sugars are always stable, because if they spike and they dip a lot, that directly impacts our energy levels. So you want your energy levels to be sustained. You want to wake up in the morning and you want to have the same amount of energy or close to it by the end of the day when you go to bed. You don't want to have times during the day where you're so exhausted, and obviously there's times in life where it's going to be like that, but in general, you want to have your energy levels stable. And one way of making sure that happens is making sure your blood sugar levels are stable. And by choosing the foods we eat, minimizing the amount of sugar is going to help get you there, and increasing the fiber. So fiber is so important because it helps stabilize your blood sugars. Fiber kind of acts like a blanket. It just kind of soaks up all that extra blood sugar. So it helps stabilize your levels. And when your blood sugar goes through these spikes and dips, your mood dampens and your anxiety levels can spike. For someone who's going through anxiety, you really want to cut back on your sugars. You will see a huge impact in your mood. It'll be hard at first, absolutely, to kind of wean off, the sugars that you're eating. But then once you get used to it, you will just feel so much better. So when we have too much sugar in our diet, or when we eat foods that have a lot of sugar, the body releases insulin, which is a hormone. And insulin is responsible for taking all the blood sugar that's in our blood and transporting it into the cells, okay? So it absorbs the excess glucose and helps stabilize your blood sugars. But sometimes when you have too much sugar, you have too much insulin, and then it takes too much sugar out, and then that's how you get a low, like a dip. So at the end of the day, just remember that consuming large amounts of processed sugar, and that's not just having table sugar. Like if you're someone who has tea and has like 3 teaspoons of tea, yes, that is quite a bit. You definitely want to scale back. But sugar is also found in other common foods that we have in our kitchen. So salad dressing, ketchup, juice. Juice is all sugar. And refined flours like white flour, donuts, pastries, crackers, white bread, cookies, white rice. These can all, like having too much of this can trigger feelings of worry, irritability, and sadness, which for people who are going through anxiety, these are things that are just going to make it worse for you. Okay, so this is just a quick visual for you guys to understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about blood sugar. So we have, if you're consuming a diet high in refined sugars, like white bread and a lot of sweets, your blood sugar is going to spike, and then insulin's going to come in, then your blood sugar is going to drop because insulin's going to take it away, and then you're going to spike again. So it has this roller coaster effect, which is going to be, our energy levels are going to be reflected with this as well. That's not what you want. You want like the green. You want your blood sugars to be stable throughout the day. You want to wake up with a good amount of energy. You want to go to bed with, with not the same amount of energy, but you don't want to be completely exhausted. So that's it. Talking about our blood sugars. So choosing foods that have fiber in it, all the foods that I outlined earlier, those foods are really going to help nourish your mood because it's going to help your blood sugars. It's going to feed the chemical messengers and the enzymes in our body so everything's working properly. And just another quick visual. I know I talked a lot about different foods and vitamins, so just a quick visual of what I want you guys to be having more of to help ease anxiety. So magnesium, I talked a lot about that, and that's found in a lot of leafy greens. Or B vitamins, you can think of whole grains, fiber. That's where we get our B vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids. You really want to aim for 1 to 2 servings of fish a week. So, picking 2 days to have fish would be a great way to kind of factor that in when you're meal planning. So you can think of it having a fish option at lunch, during the week, as well as a fish dinner. Probiotics, antioxidant-rich foods, all our fruit and veggies, and zinc, which is found in a lot of animal products too, as well as egg yolks. And again, with anxiety, slowing down, unplugging from social media or from the computer, electronics in general, making time to relax, to go outside, to enjoy life, to be calm, be positive. So much easier said than done, right? Have fun. Meditation and prayer is so important. Make sure you're breathing and just take it easy. Just trying to keep that in mind as much as you can as well. So these are some of my references. I think you guys will have access to the slides. So if you guys want to read up on anything that I spoke about or some of the studies that I mentioned, you can find them here. And yes, if there's any questions, you can feel free to ask me. Yes, or you can visit me on my website. You can also email me, and you can find me on social media at Allidina. I'm so sorry for the technical issues that I had earlier. So does anyone have any questions? I have a question here. Okay, so if most of our sugar is from natural sugars, right? How much is too much? This is an excellent question. So yes, there's no guideline right now to say you should have this much amount of natural sugars. The fact is that, yes, like if you're having too much honey or fruit, if you're having more than 3 servings of fruit a day is definitely a good amount to have. Anything more than that, you want to scale back on, okay? And again, with honey and maple syrup, right, they are natural, but they do have sugar in them. Our body does convert them into glucose at the end of the day. So we don't want to have too much of that either. They are definitely a better choice than having refined sugar. But yeah, I wish I could give you a better guideline on how much natural sugars to have. There's really nothing there to kind of help with that. Okay, so yeah, so with magnesium, you can definitely just, foods that are high in fiber, so the leafy greens, the lentils and the beans, avocado, dark chocolate, those foods are going to be fine for you to consume. If you are looking for a supplement to kind of supplement your diet with magnesium, you want to do magnesium glycinate. So I'm going to write it here. So that's what you want to look for in a form of a pill. So too much magnesium in food is not going to cause this effect. It's only going to cause this effect if you're taking magnesium citrate. So magnesium citrate, I'm going to write it here, that can cause loose stools, whereas magnesium glycinate will not do that. And then that's just the protein that it's bound, the magnesium is bound to. So hopefully that helps. There are some people that actually use magnesium to help them go to the bathroom, and in that case, they would want to use magnesium citrate. But if you don't want a laxative effect, you want a glycinate. No problem. I'm glad that was helpful. So what's the best time to do sun meditation? Yeah, so that's that's totally up to your schedule. So whatever is a good time for you to, go outside or to meditate. A lot of people find that first thing in the morning. If you're someone who has small children, then, waking up even earlier before your day starts to get that alone time in is really important. But again, anytime that you have, you can carve out, 15, 20 minutes to kind of make that time for you to do that. So it all depends on your schedule. So making the time for that is so important. Anyone have any other questions? So I think there will be a recording as well of this presentation, so you guys can refer back to that as well. And if you have any other questions that do come up, just feel free to email me, and I'll be more than happy to help you. Yes, so thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And I hope you guys found it helpful. It's so awkward sometimes to do these webinars because I can't really gauge the audience. So thank you. Thank you for letting me know that you found it useful. Thank you. Oh, thanks so much, guys. I hope you guys enjoy your evening. Remember, you want to aim for 7 hours of sleep. Take care, and we'll talk to you guys soon.